Thank you so much for joining me on the Baby Playbook Podcast. We are getting back to a really popular topic for the podcast, which is, of course, baby sleep. I think these are like my most rated episodes, and of course I understand why, because when you have a baby sleep tends to be like the most, I think, challenging part of figuring out your newborn, figuring out your little one, and it can be really overwhelming for parents. So with a lot of information out there, with a lot of Instagram accounts that you can follow, with a lot of books that you can read, I love to kind of get straight to the point of baby sleep and give you guys some really good practical tips to actually help you figure it out. So today I'm so excited to be joined by Jazz Kostov. She is the author of a new book called Let's Sleep. I've got my own copy of this book. It's such an amazing book that covers not just baby sleep, but really like family routine, family adjustment during these like really crucial first few months in a year of having a baby, and then even like flowing on from that age as well. She's a sleep consultant, she's a registered midwife and nurse, and she's a mum herself. So she knows all about this and has a young baby at the moment as well. So you're like in the thick of routines and everything. Jazz, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And thank you so much for the lovely intro, and completely agree. Sleep can be so all-consuming and just so much conflicting advice, which is it's not bad. Like, it's great that there's so much information out there, but for new parents that are tired and just trying to kind of figure out what suits them, it's a lot just absorbing all this information online and from friends or your mother-in-law, whoever's sharing the advice. So really excited to chat today about all things sleep.
Yeah, and what we're going to do today as well is we've got like a bit of a like topic that we're going to really focus in on, which is baby sleep on the go. And I know, reading your book as well, you are really passionate about making sure that we're not like trapped during this time, that we're working on our baby's sleep and we don't feel like we need to kind of be at home 24/7 doing the right thing, putting baby in cot, because that also has some like negative flow-on effects in terms of like your mental health and getting out there and getting like used to being out into the world with a baby. So it's a really important like part of sleep to get used to and confident with getting your baby out there and like achieving sleep on the go. Yeah. So first of all, I want to ask, how was your own experience with your babies, or is at the moment, when it came to kind of leaving the house and being as flexible as possible?
Yeah, I think so. My first has just turned 5. So when we had her, it was just the start of COVID, a little bit of PTSD there. And so really, like, the only thing we could kind of do was go for a walk with the pram around the block. Thankfully, we were living down at the beach at that point, so we had some beautiful walks to do. But I did struggle a lot the first time around with anxiety about sleep. And thankfully, second time around, I'm not struggling with that as much. And it's why there is so much talk about anxiety about sleep in the book, because it's my own lived experience. I know a lot of my clients struggle with it, just that worrying about stuffing things up by leaving the house with your baby, or what if they just scream in the pram or the car? What if they don't fall asleep at the time that I'd intended? And how does that impact the rest of the day? And I hear families talk a lot about, oh God, the day's just going to be ruined if they don't sleep at 9:30 or whatever time the nap time is. So with Hazel, I really pushed myself to get out early and do every morning nap in the pram. So we were doing little walks, with her in the carrier as a newborn. And then once we kind of got to that 4 months and we were keen for more of a structured routine, which isn't for everyone. For us, like, I'm just such a routine person. So I was like very keen for the routine as soon as we could have one. And every morning I would, we'd get up, we'd have some brekkie, and I'd get the pram, we'd head out and be walking down. We lived down near Sorrento, so we're down, walking along the Sorrento foreshore. I'd get a coffee, I'd listen to a podcast, and she'd sleep in the pram she really only ever slept for sort of up to 45 minutes. So both my babies have never slept for longer in the pram than that. They're just like ping awake, even if it's all dark, even if the white noise is on. But thankfully that morning sleep is pretty short anyway, with the routine we were following. So it was so good for my mental health, particularly being stuck at home all the time. And it also started to really build my confidence with being okay with doing sleep on the go and getting her used to it. And I think just that constant exposure, every day getting out with the pram, offering her sleep, it just became really normal for her. And then with Addie, who is now 7 months old, it's been really essential for us to offer naps on the go and to be able to do a nap in the pram while Hazel's at the park, having a play, or out on her scooter, and I pop Addie in the pram for a nap, and I can kind of do two things at once, be spending time with Hazel and having Addie sleeping. So it's definitely been less resistance for me the second time around. It's been a lot more natural. I haven't overthought it. And the big thing is, if she doesn't sleep, I'm like, it's okay. Like, I've got the tools to kind of get on with the day. Nothing's ruined. And I think that's one of the things I really try to get across in the book, and help empower parents with that early. But I think it's also just the blessing of being a second time or third time parent. I feel like each baby, you just chill a little bit more, or you've just got more lived experience that, like, it'll be okay.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing as well. I think with the first, it's really important to be flexible, as you said, because you are in this new challenge. It's really overwhelming. So you need to have that breath of fresh air, literally and like psychologically, and also for your mental health. Then for your second or third or consecutive child, it's actually, you're kind of forced into flexibility because you've got pickups, you've got like different times of the day, you've got another baby that's at a different age doing a different routine. So yeah, in both cases or any cases, really, you need to get your head around being in some form flexible with your routine. I love in your book, Jazz, you offer like a bit of troubleshooting as well, which is like, that's where that anxiety can stem from, is like you start the day and you're like, great, it's 7 a.m., we're on track. And then as soon as something goes wrong, like it can get very overwhelming because all of a sudden you're like, how am I even meant to like calculate the rest of the day and what's meant to happen? So you've got like some really good options in there, which I know you do. Like, are you aiming for a shorter morning nap, or are you aiming for a longer morning nap? So having that ability to like customize it is so key. So key.
Definitely.
You mentioned the pram sleep there. I also did a pram sleep. I did the last sleep of the day in the pram, and that was just due to the fact that my husband would come home and we'd do it together. So again, like if you can find that one in the day that is like you can consistently get out there and keep it flexible, it's really, really key.
Let's talk about both. Like I often would do that for one out as well. Like you really just like aiming for that one sleep in the day, to have in that cot environment, so they're getting used to it. But the rest of them, like, do them out. Like that's awesome, and what nice time with your partner. Going for a walk and getting that fresh air at the end of the day, and that actually helps promote sleep. So getting exposure to natural sunlight, being outside, really actually helps your baby sleep better at night. So it's really good getting that burst later in the day.
It's so funny you say that. Have you seen? I recently saw on Instagram. I want to say it's like Sweden or the Netherlands or something, where they on purpose put their kids out in like below freezing temperature in the pram to sleep. It's like a health thing. They get them used to the cooler weather because it like promotes sleep, and it also promotes them regulating their body heat. I was blown away by that.
It's amazing. And they it's so like horrifying. Like the safety
when
side of
it,
I'm like, oh my God, they're all outside and where are their parents? But anyway, I've seen that before. It's amazing. And we do naturally sleep better in slightly cooler temperatures. So, in my mind, I'm like, oh, we want to make the room nice and toasty and, to a certain extent, but then, they actually do sleep quite well when they are just slightly on the cooler side. So instead of, 2021, aiming for kind of 17, 18, which feels so cold, but it does, that is what our body naturally kind of gravitates towards in terms of sleep. Our body temperature drops overnight. So it's all kind of puts you into this like hibernation almost overnight. So your body can kind of reset and refuel.
So interesting. Okay, so pram sleep. We've talked a little bit about when this is appropriate, but you can explain a little bit more there, and also how we can make it happen. What are the tactics where we can make it as successful as possible in the pram?
Yeah, you might have seen there's a page on this in the book around pram sleep. And a lot of parents come to me because they're struggling to support their baby to sleep in the cot, but actually a lot of parents come to me because they're struggling with their baby not sleeping anywhere else. So often, they've been doing all contact sleeps or co-sleeping with their baby. So their baby's very used to being on them. and they're not able to sleep in the pram on the go, and that can be really restrictive. And you don't necessarily always want to put baby in the carrier. So it's a really good tool to have in your toolkit as a parent. So a few simple tips, and I cover these, as I said in the book. It's nothing it's not rocket science. It's nothing complicated, but as I said earlier, exposing your baby to this every day. So get out for a pram walk each day, make it part of your routine. Heading out maybe 10 or 15 minutes before you're aiming for them to be, going down for a sleep. So for us, that's 9:30. So I would head out at 9:15. I walk with the pram open for 5 or so minutes to let her have a look around, look at the trees and things. And then I would darken the pram. So you can use, a really breathable like muslin wrap or something. Really important in warmer weather or direct sunlight to be very mindful of what you are using to cover the pram, because prams do heat up incredibly quickly when covered. So if your pram has a built-in hood that's UV protected and has kind of mesh filters, definitely use that. And always just keep checking, kind of pop your hand in, check that temperature inside the pram. Another great product that I recommend to a lot of my clients is the Cozy Go. I don't know if you've heard of this. You can use it to cover the pram. It's like essentially like a pop-up little blackout dome for the pram.
Yeah.
It's also excellent for air travel. You can put it over the bassinets on planes. So that's something, I haven't personally used it, but a lot of my clients do rave about it. So highly recommend checking that out as well. So darken the pram, take their usual sleep props with you. So that might be white noise, their comforter, their dummy, whatever they're using for sleep at home. Obviously minus the sleeping bag, unless they're in that bassinet type style seat in the pram. Once they get into an actual seat, like the toddler seat, you obviously need to strap them in so you can't use the sleeping bag anymore. And the other one that is probably the biggest reason why kids struggle to sleep in the pram, and it's the hardest one to implement, is avoid peaking. So once you've darkened it, you've reclined the seat a little bit if they're in that upright seat, you've given them their sleep props, maybe say, it's sleepy time now, cover it up, and then go for a walk and avoid peaking, which is really hard. But every time you open up that, the blanket or open the Cozy Go or lift the hood of the pram, they're being exposed to all this natural light. They're seeing your face. And just imagine if you're trying to settle them in their room and you're going in and like lighting up the room every minute or two, it's hard to go to sleep. Like we would struggle to go to sleep like that. So, really kind of avoid peaking. You give them some verbal reassurance if they're cranky in the pram. But honestly, with 2 or 3 days of consistent exposure to sleeping in the pram like that, being offered it, walking for a good 30 to 45 minutes, give them plenty of time to fall asleep, you notice that they get a lot quicker at falling asleep and it becomes really normal for them. So for, 95% of my clients that try that, it works incredibly well. So repetition, using those usual sleep props, darkness, and avoid peaking is the biggest thing.
The genuine fear that you have, like after you've been walking for 30 minutes and you're like, if I have a look and their eyes are just like wide-eyed, it is a genuine fear that most parents have while they're on the walk. But that is a really good point.
And I get it. I get the fear. I get the urge to look. Like I'm so impatient. I'm like, I just want to know if she's asleep. But, wait until they've been quiet for a good 10 to 15 minutes and then maybe have a little peek. But just, that is the biggest thing. Avoid peaking.
Try your best.
Because it just wakes them up even more and it's so frustrating.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the car sleep as well, because this is actually a really good tactic to, especially with like your second or third, when you do have to do drop off. Car sleeps can be really useful in terms of like timing them well, and using them as a form of sleep, especially, you can obviously talk as well about like road trips and things like that. But then on the other hand, car sleeps can also sometimes really get in the way of a routine, because if they have that little quick nap in the car, you're like, oh gosh, how am I going to reset? So
disaster nap.
Yeah, disaster nap. Talk me through a car sleep and how we can approach that.
Yeah. So car sleeps, particularly, I know this now second time around doing kindy drop off 4 mornings a week. particularly when Addie was that little bit younger. Most of the time she would fall asleep on the way home because it would be pretty close to 9 o'clock and that's her nap time. So I kind of just surrendered to that and she would just have her sleep in the car. Now that she's a bit older, she's not as tired in the car at that time, so it's less of a risk. But if your little one falls asleep at a time that's outside of their normal nap time in the car, incredibly common, particularly for babies under 6 months. Maybe you're aiming for their nap to be at 12 and they fall asleep at 11:30 when you're on the way home from swimming or something. Don't panic. It's all good. Obviously, if you can try and talk to them and wake them up, that's ideal. If you can't, often they're just out cold and they're just so tired and asleep. If you can try and keep it to 10 or 15 minutes or less. So if you're kind of on the way home and that drive's short, that's ideal. If not, just keep going. I'd just say surrender to it or park out the front of your house and let them finish the nap in there if possible. If they've had over 15 minutes of sleep, or even kind of 10 minutes, if you get home and you kind of rush in to put them down and they transfer well, awesome. Obviously, you can just put them straight into bed. But a lot of babies don't transfer well. Neither of my babies have transferred from sleeping somewhere to being put into bed very well, particularly when you need to pop them in a sleeping bag or something. It's pretty difficult. So if that happens and they've had more than 15 minutes of sleep, I would keep them up for a bit longer. So if they've woken up when you've got home and stopped the car, for example, come inside, have an hour or so of awake time, 45 to 60 minutes, and then put them down. So if you try and put them down after they've had 15 minutes of sleep and then they've been awake for 10 or 15 minutes while you've been coming in and then you're like, oh, it's nap time, I'll put them down, they're very unlikely to sleep and they'll probably fight it pretty hard, just because they've had a little mini nap and it's taken the edge off. Yeah, exactly. So as I said, if it's kind of been 20 minutes plus, I would probably just let them keep sleeping and just surrender to that shorter lunch nap or whatever the nap is in the car. If you can keep it short, just give them – it's essentially like a bridge nap. That's kind of what it is. And then just give them some awake time and then put them down because it will be significantly easier to get them to sleep when they're feeling more tired again.
Yeah. Great tip there. Yeah. It's all about, I guess, as you said as well, is rather than having this absolute meltdown about how you're meant to then approach the rest of the day, it is kind of about, and I know it's really hard in the moment. I had many different meltdowns, but really going, okay, let's math it out here. If they've had this 10 minutes, how am I going to approach the rest of the day? What time is it? How long do they usually sleep? And what do I have for the rest of the day? So that comes to our next question of adjusting routine. And we've spoken about it a little bit, but it can be quite a nervous thing for parents to approach. How should they be looking at routine? Because for some people, as you said, I was one of them as well. I am a very routine mum, so I can get very anxious when the routine doesn't work. I do get better at it, every kid I have, but it's pretty intense at the start. So is it possible to have a flexible routine?
Yes, definitely. I think anytime you are planning on starting a routine, I really think, and this is why I included the troubleshooting section in the book, I think it is essential to have a bit of a nap troubleshooting plan along with it. You can't kind of do one and not the other because you're not equipped with, it's like trying to do a puzzle with missing pieces. Sorry, my cat always jumps on here and turns the
there we go hello
mic onto mute. I think that's really important. So have effective troubleshooting, whether it's using a book like mine or using an app that has a really good troubleshooting section. You want to know if your baby refuses the morning sleep or they fall asleep really late for it or they have they just sleep for 10 minutes and then they're awake. What do you do for the next nap? How do you kind of tackle the rest of the day so you don't just feel like it's all ruined? So for example, a baby that's 4 months old, if they you're aiming for a nap at 9 and you're hoping they sleep for an hour and maybe they sleep for 20 minutes and then they wake up because they've done a poo or something and it's now 9:20 and you're like, how on earth am I going to get them through until 12:30 for the next nap or whatever the time is? then that's where you might use something like a little bridge nap. So you could just head out with the pram at, say, 10:30, 11, give them a little 10 or 15-minute kip in the pram, come home, and then that will give them an extra hour or so of awake time to get through to your designated, your normal nap time. So it's just an example of, instead of being like the day's ruined, feeling anxious, you're stewing in it, you're like Googling all these different things around like how to tackle the nap, canceling your plans you had in the afternoon because the whole day has just turned to shit.
There goes rhyme time.
Yeah. Instead, you're like, it's all good. I'm going to, drive to rhyme time that's at 11 o'clock and, hopefully she'll have a sleep in the pram or, in the car on the way there. And you kind of got some tools in your toolkit. And if they refuse the bridge nap or they don't take to the troubleshooting, just put them down early for the next nap. Like it's okay. The other thing I think that just helps is repeated exposure to these situations that come up. So the more things you tackle, and I think that's why it gets easier every kid you have, because you've been through more scenarios where stuff's happened, whether it's daycare sleep or sleeps on the go or navigating naps. And you just have more experience in seeing that it's okay. Like it all worked out, your baby's not going to blow up because they wake up early from a nap. And I know, like I say that like with a chuckle, but like this caused me, like I spoke to a psychologist with Hazel because of this. Like it had me feeling like so sick to my stomach with anxiety. And it's so all consuming when you are the primary carer, you're home with your baby all the time, you're doing 3 naps a day, and, they're just kind of in that 4 to 6 month age group where they're just trying to settle into it. Their sleep's not quite fully established yet, and it's really hard. So also know that like it's okay if you're feeling that way. Like you're not weird. You're not a crappy mum. It's just getting those tools to kind of know how to tackle the day when things don't go to plan, because stuff won't go to plan like a lot of the time. And that doesn't mean the routine's not working. It's just you have a baby, like not a robot.
And that's part of it, is that you start to play this blame game as if you've done something wrong. So like she must have woken up because I didn't do this right. And that can be really dangerous as well. That sort of like cycle of going, well, why did that happen? And then trying to like find the answer to that question. So I think it is a journey in getting to the point at which you can go, okay, well, cool, that happened. What's next? Like, let's look forward. Let's look at the solution. Let's look at the options for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Just going to leave those things behind. Like, I said this on another podcast the other day. I was like, speaking to this mum and, she was talking about this nap and how things didn't go to plan. I was like, don't worry about that nap. Like that one's done.
Yeah.
It's like,
there's so many.
That morning nap is finished. It doesn't matter that it was short. Don't worry about it. Just put her down early for the next nap. And she was just like, that just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I would have just stewed on this for hours. Like it's nothing complicated. It's just like being kind to yourself. There's nothing you've done wrong. It's not your fault. You just, they're babies and they're just like, they're figuring it out as much as we are.
They really are. And they're not robots as well. That's another thing to like remind yourself.
Yeah.
You just recently went away with the family. So let's talk about travel, because that's another element. It can be really daunting when you think about going away with your baby, but like you've kind of been like working really hard on establishing good sleep habits and a routine. Like I speak to so many friends who are just like, oh no, I'm not going to do it. Like they would prefer to just like not book the holiday, which is crazy, right? Like I've been there, I understand it, but we need to be able to live our life. So let's talk a little bit about travel with babies and how we should approach this.
I so get that. That was something I struggled with Hazel, particularly in the first year, and being COVID, like I couldn't get repeated exposure to traveling because we couldn't travel. So as soon as we had some weekends available, where we weren't in lockdowns, because we live in Melbourne, we had like the most lockdowns in the entire world. We would go to our friends, country place for the weekend, and just little weekends away to start building in the flexibility. And that really helped me. I was anxious in the beginning. I didn't feel that relaxed, but doing multiple kind of trips like this really helped. And then we built up to, longer weeks away or going to Noosa for a week or whatever. But essentially keeping an open mind, knowing that, you know, your little one's sleep might be a little bit different when you travel to, you know, when you're at home. And it's the same with us. Like, we sometimes take longer to fall asleep in a slightly different place, or just, you know, different sounds that you're listening to in the room. I know for me, like, it takes 2 or 3 nights in a new accommodation to kind of sleep a little bit better and get used to kind of where I am. So, and particularly in apartment buildings, where we're staying in an apartment in Mooloolaba, and it was just like, you know, you hear other people's noises and the traffic noise, and So the other thing that, and I break this down, you might have seen in the book in the travel section, is just like balancing offering naps at the accommodation and also out and about. So just because you're on holidays, and, you know, do whatever you want. Like, if you want to do all the naps out and about, have really late nights, whatever, like, go for it. For me, in my experience, I find that they still need some good quality sleep, and that's going to make life easier for you, and you're going to have a slightly better regulated baby who isn't feeling super overtired on holidays. So for us, we try and do, you know, most of the lunch naps at the accommodation, or at least, you know, we were away for a week. I think we did 3 out in the car. So that's kind of 70%, 60%, where we tried to do them at the accommodation. One, you know, her lunch sleep is like 2.5 hours. That's my break. Like, my mum came over because we went away with my parents. Hubby couldn't come. And like, she sat there and I got to go out for a run. So like, that's my time. Like, that's sacred to me, whether I'm on holidays or whether I'm away. Like, it's not as relaxing for me if I'm out all day. Addie has short sleeps in the pram. You know, it's a lot. Like, I'm on the whole day, which is great. Like, we did do that. We went to Noosa for the day, and she had a 30-minute sleep in the car on the way to Noosa. We got some coffees while she was sleeping. And then she had like a little sleep at the pub at lunch. So she had another 30 or 40 minutes in the pram. And then I think I just offered her a little 20-minute sleep when we got home to the accommodation. And then she went to bed at like 6 o'clock. So that's just an example. Normally she would have 45 to an hour in the morning, 2 hours at lunch, and then she'd be in bed like closer to 7. But, you know, that was a great day. She had a ball. We had a good time. And I think because I focus on balancing the sleep, still kind of getting her to bed at a reasonable hour, getting the good lunch sleep in, she didn't have this built up kind of overtiredness. I think when you do multiple days in a row of minimal naps, late bedtimes, and all of these things, it can kind of catch up with them a bit on holidays. So where you can, just try and balance, you know, a nap in the accommodation, a slightly earlier bedtime, and obviously still book your dinners out and things, but just balance it a little bit. Doing the usual wind down routine is really important. Often when we are on holidays, you know, we're just, you know, kind of out of our usual groove, and we're busy doing other things. And I think taking that 20 minutes to, you know, give them, you know, every night I would give them both, you know, bath and shower. I'd get Addie dressed, do a massage like we normally do. I would, you know, read her a little story, give her bottle, and then put her down, and she has a usual like white noise, all of the things. And just doing that usual wind down routine really helps with, you know, just helping them to wind down for sleep and kind of understand what's happening next. Because otherwise they can feel a little bit, you know, just like us, we kind of just in a different rhythm on holidays. So usual wind down routine before naps and bedtime is really important. And something that I am like incredibly passionate about with travel, and I recommend to everyone, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but the product that I love so much for travel is the Slumber Pod. It's just something we've used so much with Hazel. We are now using it with Addie, and it's essentially a pop-up blackout tent that goes over the cot. And it's been really great for us. Like, if we stay in, you know, we've stayed at Crown before in Perth for a wedding, and we're all in the same room, and it just meant she had her dark sleep space. And, you know, you can still have the lights on in the room and kind of be moving around, and she's just like in the corner, got the white noise going, so she's none the wiser. And, you know, we were sitting there having our room service on the floor with our bubbles, and like, she kind of doesn't really know what we're doing. So because she's just in her own little zone. So that's something I've found really, really helpful, and we take that with us on every trip. particularly when you are room sharing with a baby that's not used to room sharing. I think it's incredibly helpful.
Yeah, that's a really good gadget. I have something really similar. It's called like a snooze shade, and they have like a version of that as well.
Yes.
So really handy when you can find yourself a really good gadget to just make life easier as well, is like, what can we bring with us that's just going to make things like slightly easier in terms of the setup?
So good.
And that's where I actually want to end up, is getting some of those best gadgets from you when it comes to baby sleep on the go. Now, we've mentioned a couple there, and they're around that, making sure for a dark environment. Do you have any others that you can recommend? Because I think the other thing is as well is like, I don't know about you, but I am fed so many things on Instagram of like, you have to buy this. And so you can actually like overspend in this area on gadgets that you think are really going to like solve so many issues for you. What are some that like have proven really useful for you?
Is this specifically to baby sleep on the go, or just baby sleep in general?
I think baby sleep in general, really.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, and I talk about this in the book, whenever you are thinking about buying a product, particularly for baby sleep, is really empowering yourself to understand the safety side of things. So is this product safe for your little one's sleep in terms of reducing their risk of SIDS or SUDI, so sudden unexpected death in infancy? It used to be called SIDS, but they've changed the acronym now. So really kind of educate yourself. Just go onto the Red Nose website, have a look at like what is a safe sleep space, and then whenever you're going to buy a product, because at baby stores, unfortunately, there are a lot of products that are sold that aren't safe for sleep or do increase the risk of SIDS occurring. So you want your baby to be on a nice firm sleep surface, for example, so avoiding like cocoons and things like that, which look so snuggly and are so wonderful, but just really always come back to that safety question and think about, are you comfortable with your baby sleeping in it? So that's just, I know that's not a suggestion of a gadget, but just always think about that before you buy something. When you're fed information and it's like, this is going to make your baby sleep, think about if it's safe first before you spend the dollars. Then in terms of products, look, there's so many. I think the basic ones, I mean, I've mentioned the Cozy-Go already. So something that creates a blackout sleep space, blackout blinds. You cannot go past them. The ones that we use are Bilby. They're fantastic, really easy to set up, and just, really, really great product for darkening the room. Portable white noise. I know it's so simple, but that's the number one thing that I use to help with sleep, and I recommend to every family. So get yourself something that's small and portable for travel. Something I haven't personally used, but a lot of people find really helpful, is the Rocket.
I've heard of this, yes.
Yeah. So it attaches onto your pram or your bassinet, and particularly if your baby quite likes a bit of motion or jiggling of the pram, it essentially just vibrates a little bit. So that's something that can be quite helpful to try. But yeah, they're kind of the main things. There's nothing I would recommend spending like thousands of dollars on. Of course, if you want to give something a go, like the snoo, etc., a lot of my clients love trying the snoo, and some find it extremely helpful, others not so much. So just, there's nothing wrong with giving things a go as long as you feel that it's safe for your baby. Then that's totally fine.
One tip I did have, because I remember when Noah, my first, was really young, we went and stayed at a hotel for a weekend, and we forgot our white noise machine, and I was like in the biggest panic. I was like, oh my God, there goes the entire weekend. Usually in a hotel, you will either find the alarm clock, or there'll be like a speaker at the TV that you can connect your phone to and play white noise, which I thought was a really great little tip. So in case you do have a disaster moment where you've forgotten a couple of things, that is my one little tip for hotel stays, is you can connect your white noise through usually the alarm clock or like a little bit of a speaker that they've set up for the TV. And, also things like making sure that you ask the hotel to set up the cot for you. Like if you're going away, do your best to like research what you can actually get there, and then you can do all your packing planning because,
yes, yeah,
as you know, you can pack like half the house when you are going on a trip with a baby. So if you can save in some element, some
100%.
space, then make sure you do that.
The other thing, not so much related to getting babies to sleep, but particularly if you're staying somewhere like a hotel, definitely take extra cot sheets, extra mattress protectors, and extra sleeping bags with you in case of leak throughs or if they vomit or like whatever happens. You can quickly do a sheet change. And I've done that before. I've forgotten to take an extra cot sheet and it was annoying. So, and particularly sleeping bags, I find taking 2-3 tog sleeping bags or 2-1 tog and just have a couple of backups so that, you do have another one to put on baby if something happens overnight.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for all of that amazing information, Jazz. Kind of summarizing that baby sleep on the go and getting out there with baby and not being afraid to kind of like keep things a little bit flexible during those early months as well. If you guys would like to keep up with Jazz, you can on Instagram. It's _sleep on Instagram. And you can, of course, go to her website as well. We are doing something really exciting for this episode, which is we are giving away a copy of your book. It's called Let's Sleep. And all of this information is in there alongside not just sleep on the go, but just sleep in general. And also an amazing topic that we're actually going to be touching on next week because we have you for a double episode on the podcast, which is mum sleep. So actually us taking care of ourselves and getting some really good snooze in for ourselves during those very restless times. If you'd like to enter that giveaway, you have to head to the website, heynicolinak.co. Make sure you pop your email in so that you are in the running. Thank you so much, Jazz.
No worries. Thanks for having me.